COVID passports are set to become a feature of our daily lives until the pandemic subsides. That we now know for certain following the government's recent announcement. But it's a deeply controversial proposal politically, and here's why. So what the government's looking at present may not force people to get a vaccination, which is the concern of some in Parliament. But nonetheless, although there are three options potentially being looked at for this COVID passport or COVID certification scheme, as the government prefers to call it, it doesn't answer those questions about forcing people to essentially carry a bio-identity card. I think that this is a particular problem for Conservatives and conservatism, because running through the party and its traditional ideology is this real rejection of the authoritarian idea of forcing people to carry credentials proving who they are. There's this sense that it's very un-British almost. It's incredibly difficult for Boris Johnson because there is now an unlikely coalition across Parliament of MPs and peers, both Conservative backbenchers, including Ian Duncan-Smith, the former Tory leader, lots of Labour politicians, including former leader Jeremy Corbyn, and Liberal Democrats, really staying true to the capital L liberalism and rejecting this idea of forcing Brits to carry ID cards, or what some call bio-identity cards. Boris Johnson faces a real problem trying to get on board those Conservatives who he is naturally tribally aligned with. He is not pro-nanny state. He is formerly a fierce libertarian in his instincts. In 2004, Boris Johnson famously said in a column for the very pages of the Telegraph that if he were forced to carry an ID card, that he would take it out of his wallet and physically eat it in protest at the state imposing such an idea. But I think we have to acknowledge that there are several things that have changed his mind on this one. One may be that it's the fact that he contracted COVID and became seriously ill himself. I think beyond that, there's also the sense of responsibility that comes with being in charge. And I think another thing we have to acknowledge here is that all the polling shows that so far, Britons are really behind this idea of having a scheme that means that if they've had the jab, they can go out and also, mingle, socialize with other people. They know that they can be safe while out and about. A COVID certification scheme is ultimately anti-libertarian and against what we would normally see Conservative politicians argue for liberty, for privacy, and against discrimination that could potentially be entailed by such a scheme. But Boris Johnson needs to weigh that up, on the one hand, with the arguments for this scheme, particularly the public health benefits and the fact that at the moment he has the wild support of the public on side. Boris Johnson faces a real dilemma with this proposal. The public health arguments for COVID passports are appealing to him. He's seen the latest modelling and he is concerned about the threat of a future surge. And for the moment, he has the public on board with the idea of COVID passports. On the other hand, his fiercest critics on his own backbenches warn that this proposal threatens the very heart of conservatism and the tenets of freedom and privacy. This is a proposal that could have far-reaching and long-standing consequences. Ultimately, it could define his legacy as a conservative.